Many businesses in 2018 see the high impact video can have in their marketing strategy. However, many businesses also struggle in getting started with videos, as they think it can be high cost or they will require an agency. Well, that's not always the case. I'm going to show you the 5 top elements you should consider before starting to do video on a budget. Because hey, video is also science. Hi, my name is Paolo and I'm head of video here at Growth5. So before we go on, remember to subscribe to the channel, like and comment below. Every section will be composed by 2 parts. 1. A short and basic overview of the theory of video. 2. Some tips and tricks on how to produce a video on a budget. The first rule is called Rule of Thirds, and it's based on the idea that you should organize your frame in 9 rectangles and trying to put the important part of your composition along the lines or on the intersection. This rule is really important to drive the attention of the viewers on the most important subject of your composition. Having this in mind will help you to avoid what is called the negative space, like this one. To help you in remembering this rule, I suggest you to activate the grid in your device. Whether you have a phone, an entry-level or a professional camera, you should be able to activate the grid easily. If you have an iPhone, for example, this option is not enabled. So you have to go on Settings, open the camera settings and activate the toggle called Grid. The second element you should consider is the depth of field. To understand this concept, first you have to understand how lens works. Any lens you are using, from the basic lenses you have on your phones to the professional cine lens, you will be able to focus only on a single point in your frame. To understand this concept, you should first understand how focus works. The dimension of a single point can be variable according to the aperture of your lens. It seems like a difficult concept, I know, but it's actually just mechanics. A wider aperture will have a smaller plane of focus. The more you are going to close the aperture, the bigger the plane of focus will be. Cinematographers use depth of field as a driver for the attention of the audience. Depth of field is not only a difficult concept, but it also demands technical abilities and expensive equipment. Because of this, for most of you it will be really difficult to get it done. My cheap trick here is to use natural perspective in the scene. So, in order to drive the attention of the viewers, I use sequence of columns, straight lines or converging elements. As you can see, I've used lines in the environment in order to point out the most important elements of my compositions. Going back to the organization of the frame, we have the third rule, which is field size and headroom. The field size is composed by 2 elements. First, focal length and second, field of view. Let's start with the focal length. As you can notice, the longer the lens, the less you see of the environment. Also, the shorter the lens, the less natural the face will look. Working with different lenses is really important, and that's the reason why entry-level cameras usually have both optical and digital zoom, to give you the widest scope possible. Having this feature can also be really expensive as before. So in this case you can have 2 solutions. First is to use a phone. Usually phones have a good average focal length. But if you want to use a camera like an entry-level camera, usually you have lenses between 18mm and 50mm. I would suggest you to use between 35mm and 50mm of focal length. In any case, I would really suggest you to not use the digital zoom, since it's just a crop of your sensor. Translated, if you have a 4K camera on your phone and you zoom in, your camera resolution will no longer be 4K. Okay, now let's go on with the second element, the field of view. The field of view is basically the proportion between the environment and the characters. The scope is between extreme long shot and Italian shot. So here is really up to you and what you want to have. But remember these 2 rules of thumb. Avoid the extreme of the scope. Extreme long shot, close up or extreme close up, because they are the most dramatic and the more technically difficult to manage. Second thing, remember to leave a little bit of space to the head. As you can see, too much or too little space on top of the head can be really weird. Generally, I would suggest you to put the eye on this line. In this way, the head will always have enough room on the top. The next rule is the 180-degree rule. So let's say that we want to interview 2 people. Let's draw a line crossing both characters. This rule says that between 2 shots, you should never cross the line that we have just drawn. The camera basically acts like a spectator to a tennis match. You can only see one side of the match and you will never be able to go on the other side of the field. This rule have to be considered also when your character is interacting with an object. If, for example, you want to show someone using your app on the phone and the subject in your first shot is on the right, in the next shot you will need to put the screen on the right of the frame and the body of the person will be on the left of the screen and possibly also a little bit out of focus. Making a video is not only about what happened in the frame, it's also where to put the lights, and how to record the audio. Before we dive into what is considered the basic settings for lights and audio, I believe you should ask yourself this question. How many videos am I going to shoot? Is this something I'm gonna do once or more often? If this is something that you just want to do once or you want to buy the attention of the stakeholder with an experiment, I would suggest you to not buy anything and just rent something. If you already know that you are gonna do that more often, then maybe it's better to buy some basic equipment. Especially when you use phones, it's really important to get lights in your frame in the best way possible. possible. In order to do so, the most basic way to get this right is to have three sources of light. The first one is called key light. The purpose of key light is to highlight the form and dimension of the subject. The second one is fill lights. Those are used to reduce the contrast of a scene to match the dynamic range of the recording media. Last one is backlight. Backlights help separate the subject from the background. Let's move on with the second element, the audio. When it comes to audio, most of the people think that the camera built-in microphone is enough. This is wrong. I really want to stress this point, so let's do one test. This is the camera audio, and this is the sound of a proper microphone on a budget. So as you can see, the entire quality of the video changed completely. Audio recording has become in recent years really easy to manage and not really expensive. This is our setup, and is basically a small mixer with two input and an output. It's perfect for interviews or small explanatory video like this one. I highly recommend you to avoid to use the built-in mics and to buy a small microphone like this one to have a more direct source in the audio. I hope this video is gonna give you a good head start without going through an agency or a production company. As always, remember to subscribe and to like this video, and if you want, just leave some comments about your first experiments or any blockers you may have encountered. See you next time!